Okay, let's dive into a super helpful tool with budget spreadsheets. It can save you time and it can add some really good analysis to your spreadsheet. It's called the SUMIF function. Let's jump in. Here's a budget for a small business. And under expenses, we've got a few categories. Let's make that a little wider. And for each category, this person has decided to give it a marking. Has given every expense an initial, F for fixed, and V or V for variable. So any expense with an F is a fixed expense. It's going to be the same every month. Their business insurance is $250 every month. Their dues and subscriptions are, as of now, $375 every month. Variable expenses will change from month to month. The utilities this month are $800. The next month, it may be lower if it's warmer, or it may be higher if it's colder. We'll assume we're in a cold area. So all of the expenses they have named as either F for fixed or V for variable. Now let's see what they want to do with that. Maybe they want to just check what their variable expense is every month. That way they can see if the variable expenses are getting out of control, if there's something that they could look at changing to stay on track with their expenses. We're going to put a formula in here that gives us the sum of just the variable expenses. And this is convenient because this user has marked which expenses are variable. Let's take a trip to bad analogy land. Let's say we want to find out what the total number of pies are. If we could actually use words in formulas, it might look something like this: equals sum pies. And if we put that formula in Excel, we would get the number 5. But now the seller has differentiated, marked off the different types of pies that they have, and stamped each pie with some type of a letter, initial, F for fruit, C for cream. We're going to build our spreadsheet so it can give us a total of just certain types of pies, just the fruit pies. We can do this with a special function. Instead of using sum, we are going to use the function SUMIF. Add these things together if they meet a certain criteria. So if we could actually write words in our function, it might look like this. We would start with SUMIF, and we're going to tell it where to look for the symbol or the designation or the category. And in this case, it's going to be on the top of the pie. Next, we're going to tell it what symbol or what category we're looking for. In this case, F. F for fruit. Lastly, we're going to tell what the total thing is that we're looking at counting. What is the total range of possibilities? So in this case, we want it to look at all of the pies. And that's the last part of this function. So we're going to click in the cell where we want that total to appear. We start our formulas always with an equal sign, and we're going to type the name of the function, which is SUMIF. SUMIF has 3 parts. We're going to type an open parentheses so we could start and type in the first part. The first part is the range of the criteria. This range should include the cells that have the criteria that we want to pick and choose from. So we want to pick and choose from the criteria of, is this expense variable or fixed? So this is the range we're going to select. Then on the keyboard, type a comma. Now, criterion, that is whatever it is we're actually looking for that we want to evaluate. What are we looking for that we want to sum? Well, we want to look for any expense that has a V. So we could type a V, but that's not going to work. In a backspace, you need to have quotation marks. So type the quotation mark, that's the key next to the enter key, a V, and we need to type a capital because we have capital V's in this column where we have our markings for our expenses. I'm going to type another quotation, so that's all contained within quotation marks. I'm going to type another comma, so I'm going to hit the comma key on the keyboard. Lastly, we need to give it the range that has the numbers that it could possibly pull from. So any of the numbers that we want are going to be in this column C because this is where all the expenses are. I wouldn't choose all of these numbers because the income numbers we don't care about. They're not part of the criteria. They don't have the markings for fixed or variable. So I would just select all of the numbers for expenses. So I'm telling the sheet to look in this column, look in column B for anything that has a V in it. And if it has a V in it, look at the numbers next to it and pull out just the numbers that have a V next to it. I'm going to close, type a close parentheses, it's a shift and a 0, and hit the enter key. And there, now it has pulled out, SUMIF has pulled out any of the expenses that are variable. Let's change an expense. Let's say utilities goes down to 600. And my variable expense has changed. And the nice thing, so it depends really on how you structure. You need to structure your spreadsheet in a way that you have a column for criteria. You have a column that is making a distinction, that is marking or naming or categorizing your rows so you can use that column to use SUMIF. I'm using column B, like we said before, with fixed and variable. And now what I'm going to do, because I want this to look nice and neat when I print it, I'm going to hide the column. And we have a budget with a little bit more nuance in it. I can look and automatically, I can immediately see what my variable expenses look like this month. Stay tuned for other useful features and functions that we can use to make our budgets more intelligent.